My name is Margaret Woolley Bussey, and I am the Executive Director of the Department of Commerce and serve under Governor Cox. We're really grateful that you're here today, excuse me, to hear about the results of a years-long investigation that culminates today in a historic proposed consent order between Aylo and a joint partnership comprised of the Division of Consumer Protection and the Federal Trade Commission, which is represented today by Utah's own Commissioner Melissa Holyoke. We're also grateful to have Attorney General Derek Brown, whose team has represented the division exceptionally in this matter. I'd also like to thank Director Katie Haas of our Division of Consumer Protection and her very able staff for their important investigative work on this matter. So, who is Aylo? What is Aylo? Aylo owns and operates some of the largest and most visited pornography websites in the world, including Pornhub, RedTube, and hundreds of other sites with names that are really too obscene for me to mention. In addition to trafficking in depraved material to hundreds of millions of people worldwide, Aylo has openly, repeatedly, and severely violated Utah's consumer protection laws for years by allowing the unconscionable distribution of the worst, CSAM, which stands for child sexual abuse material, and NSM, which stands for non-consensual material, enabling the abuse of thousands of Utahns. Not only did Aylo actively allow this content to be distributed, but it was systematically deceptive about its presence on its sites, on those hundreds of sites, by telling its users it had robust safety measures in place to protect against the distribution of such material. It did not. Aylo told users that CSAM and NSM content flagged by users would be removed. It was not. It told users that if a content partner were uploading CSAM or NSM, they would be banned. They were not. Aylo told consumers that any CSAM material that had been removed would be fingerprinted so it could not be re-uploaded to the company's sites. That content was still re-uploaded. It told users that it kept documentation that all persons represented in its videos were of a legal age. It did not keep such documentation. All of this adds up to a portrait of a company that has had no intention to comply with its own policies, even when called out by credit card companies, journalists, and just a general public outcry. And why? Why were they doing this? Unprecedented profits, yes. But in reading the complaint, it's hard to see anything else than that this company seems to relish spreading this kind of content for its own sake. Through our partnership with the FTC, we have secured significant injunctive terms requiring Aylo to immediately cease its debased behavior regarding CSAM and NSM, as well as fines and penalties totaling up to $15 million. We're incredibly grateful for the partnership of the FTC on this case. We could not have done it without them. And I'd now like to turn the time over to Commissioner Holyoke to talk more specifically about the details of the case and the terms of this settlement. She'll be followed by Attorney General Derek Brown. We appreciate the leadership of both Commissioner Holyoke and General Brown on this important matter. After their remarks, we'll open it up to questions from the press. And please note we have press online as well, as this settlement has national implications. Commissioner Holyoke.
Thank you so much, Margaret. Thank you, Director. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. And thank you for joining us today. I'm here to join in an announcement of an important law enforcement action to combat against child sexual abuse material and non-consensual pornographic materials. Today, the FTC and the Utah Division of Consumer Protection file an action against Aylo, Group Limited, and other related companies that operate Pornhub, and more than 100 other pornographic video and photo websites. As a current FTC commissioner and as Utah's former Solicitor General, I'm delighted to be here in the Utah Capitol to represent the FTC in this announcement. Early this morning, the FTC and Utah filed in the United States District Court for the District of Utah a complaint alleging that Aylo companies violated the Federal Trade Commission Act and the Utah Consumer Sales Practice Act in their operation of some of the world's most visited pornography websites, including Pornhub.com. For our part, the FTC alleged 9 different ways in which defendants violated the Federal Trade Commission's Act prohibition on unfair or deceptive acts or practices. The conduct we described in the complaint is truly horrific, as Director Bussey talked about. We allege that Aylo companies profited for years from distributing tens of thousands of videos and photos that contain child sexual abuse material, which the law calls CSAM, as well as pornographic content that was produced or distributed without the consent of the individuals in the video or photo. The complaint alleges that the non-consensual material included content containing revenge porn, spy camera videos, rape, incest, or other absolutely appalling categories of content. As the complaint states, one of Aylo's employees referred to Pornhub as a gold mine for rape content. The complaint details allegations that the Aylo companies knew that they were distributing CSAM and non-consensual content while misrepresenting to consumers that they were taking serious steps to keep such content off their websites. Despite the Aylo company's claims, according to our complaint, they did not begin attempting to keep CSAM and non-consensual material off their websites until after their credit card processors began threatening them with massive fines and termination of payment processing. Even then, the Aylo companies kept tens of thousands of CSAM and non-consensual videos and photos on their website while claiming otherwise. The complaint also alleges that Aylo companies deceive consumers about how they would use and secure their personal information. The harm that Aylo companies caused is evident. The children and non-consenting adults included in the content that the Aylo companies distributed were violated and injured in the most horrific of ways. The distribution of child sex abuse material and non-consensual material re-victimizes the individuals who were abused in the creation of that content. The complaint further alleges that by exposing consumers to such content, the Aylo companies likely caused consumers to experience trauma and emotional distress and induce consumers to unknowingly engage in potentially unlawful conduct. In addition to filing our complaint today, we also filed today a proposed order, a settlement order. If approved by the court, the settlement order will require the Aylo companies to take important steps designed to prevent the harms that I described from happening in the future. Those measures require the Aylo companies to remove previously uploaded videos unless the companies verify that the individuals participating in the videos were of age and provided consent, implement a program to prevent the publication or dissemination of CSAM and non-consensual material, implement a system to respond to reports that uploaded content includes CSAM and non-consensual material, post a notice on the Aylo company's websites to inform users about the FTC's and Utah Division of Consumer Protection's complaint and order against the companies, and implement a comprehensive privacy and information security program. I want to thank the talented staff in the FTC's Division of Privacy and Identity Protection and the Bureau of Consumer Protection for their outstanding work leading to today's action. Thank you in particular to Division of Privacy and Identity Protection attorneys, Jacqueline Ford, Manmeet Dinsa, Alejandro Rosenberg, Ben Wiseman, and Bob Shashinsky, as well as our investigator, Kaylin Conant. They have joined us remotely and for this announcement today. I also want to thank the team from the Utah Division of Consumer Protection for their work on this matter. This action is so incredibly important for what it accomplishes and for protecting survivors. And it's particularly rewarding to me to be here today with former colleagues and my friends as we announce this. And I will now turn it over to Attorney General Derek Brown to talk more about Utah's team.
Thank you, Commissioner Holyoke. I appreciate that and appreciate the opportunity to partner with the FTC and the good work you've done. And thank you, Director Bussey, and for your leadership as well, and for our partnership with the Department of Commerce's Division of Consumer Protection. Together, as many of you know, we've taken action specifically against Big Pharma for things like artificially inflating drug prices and the opioid epidemic. We've also taken action against Big Tech for things such as creating algorithms that cause addiction and exploit our kids. And today, we announce an effort jointly, specifically against the pornography industry for exploiting children. So every month, Aylo's sites collectively get something in the realm of hundreds of millions of unique visitors. And since at least 2012, many of these sites have hosted tens of thousands of videos and photos that have featured child sex abuse material and non-consensual material as well. So my office, as you know, leads the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And so we work together with about 90 different law enforcement agencies and affiliates specifically to prosecute this kind of behavior. And we do regularly prosecute those who engage in the possessing or creating of child sex abuse material. Now, while today's press conference and this announcement doesn't involve criminal prosecution, my hope is that this will highlight how widespread this is and the fact that it was routinely, albeit sometimes accidentally, on one of the world's largest pornography sites. So today we put an end to it. So due to our work with the FTC and the Department of Commerce, Aylo will be required, first of all, to pay a penalty of $5 million. They will also remove any and all child sex abuse material and non-consensual material from their platforms, and, this is important, proactively implement measures to prevent it from ever appearing again. If they fail to do so, then they will have to pay significantly higher crimes. You see, CSAM and the production and distribution is one of the most heinous crimes in our society. The images and the videos cause lasting trauma for their victims, and because it remains online for years, that victimization continues. Also, predators actively seek out child sex abuse material, which further victimizes and exploits children, becoming an endless cycle. So for years, Aylo ignored hundreds of thousands of flags on its videos, including those flagged by its consumers as potentially CSAM or NSM. Today, as of today, they can no longer do that. Aylo must now verify that all of the individuals appearing on their sites are adults and that they have given their written consent. They must do this for all the videos that are currently on their sites, as well as for any content moving forward. But importantly, we aren't just going to take their word for it. So for the next decade, an independent third party will also audit their business and websites to assure that they are complying with what are filed today over 50 pages of court-ordered requirements. And Aylo has agreed to pay $5 million now, and if they violate the order, they will pay up to $10 million. And at that time, if that happens, we will open up investigations. We will pursue all legal remedies available to us. In other words, everything will still be on the table. Utah stands ready to protect our children from exploitation wherever that exploitation takes place. And the rise of the internet has unfortunately led to instances, an increasing amount of instances of child exploitation. And it's no longer limited to the dark web. Predators can find it more and more on regular sites. And in the 25 years since the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children was established, their tip line has received over 195 million reports. In fact, every month, my office receives many tips from that hotline. And in fact, we have prosecuted successfully many individuals because of the tips that we have received from that hotline. So the prevalence of CSAM isn't just disturbing or infuriating, it's completely unacceptable in our society, and we must use all the tools at our disposal to stop it. So my office and our ICAC team already prosecute those who sexually exploit children. But this court order today demonstrates one more tool in the toolbox that we have, and that is the civil court process. And that tool helps us go after those who profit from the sexual exploitation of children. And that's really what today's announcement is about. So in addition to distributing CSAM, as we mentioned, Aylo distributed what's called non-consensual material, and that involves people who did not agree to participate. In fact, Aylo's own internal compliance team described one of their sites as, quote, a gold mine for rape content. That's right, that's an actual quote. In the past, Aylo knew about this non-consensual material, and rather than take it off, they simply changed the titles. So now Aylo must obtain written proof that every person in their video and on the platform has actually agreed to be in the video. Users will also be allowed now to report and request the removal of all of that information. And if they don't do these things, let me be very clear today, I will take them back to court. I know that while these measures will make a difference for victims of CSAM and NCM rather, this does not mark the end of their suffering, their trauma, and their abuse. And frankly, to state the obvious, while Aylo owns some of the platforms where CSAM and NCM have been detected, they certainly don't own all of them. So that's why I hope today's message sends an important signal to the industry. If you think you can distribute CSAM and profit by exploiting our children, think again. We will find you, we will hold you accountable. And frankly, if you think that you can distribute NCM and profit by exploiting people in that manner, think again. We will find you and we will hold you accountable. I'm proud of our attorneys who have worked so hard on this case. They're here with me today. We have Douglas Crapo, thank you for being here. Stevenson Smith, Karina Wells, and Michael Gad, and I appreciate you for not backing down and being fierce in your advocacy and in your work drafting and working on this case, because I know it's not been easy. I also want to thank the FTC and the Department of Commerce for their work, and I hope this brings us closer to a moment in our society where we don't have these things. And just in closing, I'd like to add sort of one parenthetical remark. The fact that Aylo profited by not removing this material should give us pause and maybe give us reason to reflect for a moment about our society. This platform we're talking about today is one of the largest, not just websites in pornography, but one of the largest in the world. Now, the First Amendment obviously protects speech that we don't agree with, speech that we may find offensive, but it does not protect this kind of material. And like so many products in our society that are legal, we allow it and we do it because we respect freedom and we respect agency and self-determination. That being said, it is addictive. And if you are addicted, I'd urge you to get help now. And judging on the sheer size of the websites, as we've discovered, you're clearly not alone. And parents, take this as an opportunity for those of you listening to talk with your kids and to monitor what is on their phones and tablets, because what we've done in terms of the lawsuits that we have filed, including with Director Bussey, those against social media companies, while those are a good step, they do not substitute for the hard work of parenting and working with your kids. Pornography used to be something that had to be searched out. Now it finds our children, as we all know. So please work with them to help your children understand and grasp the realities of this issue. And we also, I might add, have brave legislators here in Utah who have taken some heat for taking on this industry with legislation. And I want to make it clear that I will personally support any of our lawmakers who are willing to sponsor bills or implement policies that are as hostile to this industry as the First Amendment allows. So on that note, I appreciate our partners. I appreciate those who have made this step possible, this opportunity that we have to force change in an industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney General Brown. And now I want to open up for questions in the room. Ben? Mhm. Absolutely. I think there's two responses to that. I think first, the allegations in the complaint go back quite a bit ways. And the allegations show that since 2012, tens of thousands of CSAM and non-consensual material has been distributed on these websites. I mean, secondly, as we know, in Utah, there are ways to access these websites if you are still in Utah. And we know that there are Utahns that are still being re-victimized by these actions. We know that there have been materials on the website since 2020, but that's why this order is so important. Because what it does, as soon as that it's entered, they have to they have to review all existing materials on their website and verify that that the participants are of age. So that's why it's important. It ensures both the protection of folks on the current content on the website, but then it goes further. And then now we have prevention for future materials that might be uploaded. And that's where it's such an important guardrail here, where they have to review all material that's going to be uploaded and ensure that the participants are of age and that there's consent. And that ensures really an immediate stop to having the NCM and CSAM materials flow up. We'd absolutely hope so. And I think as Attorney General Brown noticed, this is a signal. We are going after obviously the most visited pornographic websites, but the world should take note that this is important to us. This is important to the FTC. It's important to Utah in terms of making sure that this type of material does not get up on those websites. And if it does, we are going to ensure that quick removal of that. I'm not going to speak to any other potential investigations. I think so, and we have the $5 million that they have to pay immediately 7 days after entry of the order. But there's also a $10 million suspended judgment. So if there is absolutely any provision of the order that is violated, then that $10 million goes to Utah. But I also think that it ignores the enormous investments that these companies have to make in ensuring that these systems are in place, both the systems to look at the content that's previously on, the systems in place for content that might be uploaded, and then the systems that need to be in place for removal requests and potential investigations later on. Absolutely. It's not uncommon when we're working through these settlements. The question was, why is there a 2-month lag after the settlement that had been signed? And that's not uncommon in settlements and investigations.
That's a great question. Well, first of all, just to be really clear, we don't comment on any pending criminal investigations. But I think it's important to remember a couple of things. First of all, if they don't comply with the terms, that is something that we can look at. I mean, that is specifically contemplated. And so in the event that they don't, that is something we can look at. But really, from our standpoint, what matters most here is the fact that we are, as the commissioner referenced, we're really forcing change in an industry that is long overdue in terms of need for change. And that's the real value behind what it is that's taking place today. But the toolbox, so to speak, of tools that we have available to us to attack what you mentioned is one of the most heinous crimes out there is plentiful. And one of them obviously is the criminal side. One is the civil side. And today, this is the civil side of that issue.
To go back to your question on other states looking at this, I do want to mention, there was a question on whether other states might look into similar activities. I do want to note that this order applies nationwide in terms of the requirements of Pornhub and the related sites and the related companies. So the FTC was certain to make sure that these guardrails are things that we can see across the country.
Warning label as are there, did the company use it as part of the consent order to post this on the website? And yes, is there an issue there or not?
Correct. Yes, the company, this is part of the order to have this. The question was whether the company agreed to have this notice that will be going up on the website. And yes, that is part of the settlement. We reviewed the order with the First Amendment in mind, and we believe that it does comply with the First Amendment. There are no other concerns. Sure. And if in the complaint, it details the timeline of what's happening, how this was sort of brought to light then. But as it continues, the company had compliance teams that were looking at this information. And what we saw and what we've, as the complaint details, is that they did not do enough here. The compliance team saw that this information was on there, but discouraged the deletion of all of this material. They had things, the compliance team saw that material was, even though things may have been reported 15 times, was still not being looked at. So there was a lot of, which resulted in still maintaining tens of thousands of materials remaining on their website for years. With, I'm not sure about that. Karina online, can you give us some more information on the details of that? Not Karina, I'm sorry. I will call on my own attorney. Jacqueline? Is there
Sorry, I can't hear
additional
the
information you
question.
can provide?
I can't hear the questions that are being asked in the room. So if you could repeat it, that would be great.
So the question is whether in the last year or two, there are materials still remaining on the website.
Yeah, so our complaint does allege that there are materials on the website, but also we recognize that they have done a lot to keep things off as we've been negotiating with them. So, and like you said, we allege in the complaint that since 2012, Aylo distributed tens of thousands of videos and photos featuring CSAM and NCM. And the order that is being announced today has been carefully crafted to respond to the complaint's allegations in a way that we hope the safeguards imposed will prevent CSAM and NCM from being uploaded in the first instance.
No, I don't believe we have information as to the question was whether the tens of thousands of videos were all distributed in Utah. And no, I don't believe we have information on the exact number that were distributed in Utah. There are no more questions in the room. Oh, one more question. Yes, you're correct that the question was whether the relief, the injunctive relief and the requirements that Pornhub and these companies must take is nationwide, but the payment itself, whether that would reach other states. And you are correct. The payment itself goes to the state of Utah, does not go to the FTC to distribute. I'll leave that to Director Bussey to speak.
Thank you. It's a really important question. Want me to repeat the question? The question is, where will the money go? So as Commissioner Holyoke said, we'll be receiving $5 million immediately from this company and then 10 million more if they don't comply. That $5 million goes into a consumer protection education fund, and we will be consulting with the governor's office. We've actually already had conversations with them and also with sister agencies, like, for instance, Health and Human Services, to figure out the best way that we can possibly use this to protect our kids and treat our kids that have been harmed in this way. So it'll be used in such a way that we see harms coming in from this kind of material. It does not.
If there are no more questions in the room, we can turn to the questions online.
Mike, you're live. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to sort of ask two quick questions. One is, can you talk about any privacy violations that led to the settlement to include a requirement for a comprehensive privacy program? And is there a broader warning here in this action for other platforms that aren't about porn, such as social media platforms that might also be hosting CSAM or NSM content? Thanks.
And just to repeat the question, the first was whether there was a broader, whether the security program that's required under this element was because of privacy violations. And yes, that's correct. As the complaint details, there was sensitive personal information that was collected and that was not adequately protected by the companies. And so the order requires that this sensitive personal information be protected and that there are reasonable security measures for protection of that sensitive personal information that is collected. And maybe I can add it to Jacqueline. Do you have anything to add on that with respect to the security violations, data security?
Thank you, Commissioner Holyoke. And I should have introduced myself. My name is Jacqueline Ford, and I'm an attorney with the FTC. Yes, as the commissioner said, the privacy and data security counts are related to representations that Aylo made regarding the privacy and security of information collected in connection with verification procedures on the websites. Because we saw these issues as alleged in the complaint, we felt it was important to address those, especially since the CSAM and NCM prevention program in the order will require more comprehensive age and consent verification. And with that information being collected, it must be protected.
And the second question from MLEX was whether this should be a broader signal to other social media companies. And yes, we think it should be. This was obviously the most visited pornographic website and some of these other websites that were involved in here. But this type of material will not be tolerated to be, and the FTC is committed to using its statutory tools to go after having these type of material online where it re-victimizes the survivors from the horrific abuse that they suffered. And as Attorney General Brown said, he's committed and well ready to go after this as well.
Any other questions from our attendees online?
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming.
That concludes our announcement today. Thank you for joining us.